Well, I was fortunate enough to be appointed back in September last year, so I really, at that point in time, thought it'd be a real temporary position and I'd have an opportunity to help out the school board and fill a spot of Dan Oakes, who had moved out of the community and had some experience, so it seemed like a logical fit then. And as I got more into that, then we began to think about, am I able to help the schools? Am I able to add something to the equation at the board level that's going to be beneficial to our community long term? Because we really are invested in Decatur. I've had 4 boys who went through MacArthur High School. All now are grown adults with children of their own, not all children of their own, but 2 of them have children, and so we're looking to the future, and we've invested in Decatur. My wife was the CEO of Heritage Behavioral Health Center. So we moved here in 1988, and I think now being retired is an opportunity to put back into action some of those experiences gained over my 45-year career. Well, yeah, I think there's several priorities, and in no particular order here, I'd begin to talk about those. We have a situation where there's an achievement deficit. I think we all know, and we all saw the article in the Wall Street Journal a couple of months ago, and I think that's an issue we own. That's an issue that we have to really get our arms around what the future is going to look like and what active, proactive steps we're going to take to address that achievement deficit. We cannot continue to have our 3rd graders, 5%, 6% of those 3rd graders being able to read at grade level and do simple math at grade level. That sets those children back for the rest of their academic career. And in my estimation, and as a community, I'm sure, we find that unacceptable. So I know our superintendent, Dr. Clark, is working diligently with her team to put together an action plan to begin to address that probably in the fall of this year. It's not one of those things that we're going to be able to, you look at 2 things with 2 lenses, the microscope and the telescope. And this is not one of those telescope issues. This is a microscope issue. It affects us as a community. It affects our workforce. And as such, we see announcements pretty regularly that the Economic Development Corporation with Nicole Bateman and her group are being able to attract new businesses to our community. We're growing those businesses. If we're going to grow those businesses and grow as a community again, we're going to have an educational level that's commensurate with the needs of those businesses. So to that end, I would say that would probably be my laser focus. I think we also need to look at ourselves, look at us as a board and governance. What does governance look like? When you get right down to the bottom line of governance with a school board or any elected board, not-for-profit board, or corporate board, really you have one employee. And in our case, that's the superintendent of schools. So we need to, as a board, learn to focus on speaking as one. There are 7 people on the board, which means that we have to work together to create consensus on issues amongst ourselves, and then we work with the staff to operationalize those policy issues. So I think it's really important that we work hard on corporate governance and implement some changes to the way we currently do business. So yeah, that would be one of the issues I would really be focusing on as well. The violence in the schools. I think we have to step back and step up in terms of how we view those situations, how we react to those situations, and there have to be consequences for actions or lack of actions, whichever way you want to look at that. We just took our baby first step with the hiring of Mr. Talley. He comes with a tremendous background in law enforcement. He's been with the state police. He's been chief of police at Maywood. He actually, though, started his career here in Decatur. So he has a pretty strong background on Decatur, how Decatur operates. He knows people in Decatur. So, and he's got a dynamic personality that I think when he interacts with the kids throughout the school system and the staff throughout the school system, I think there's going to be a real positive impact there. But that's just the first step. The next step is to allow him to develop those policies, develop those strategic plans that we're going to be able to operationalize as a staff throughout the next, the coming years. Because the way things are going right now, reality and perception. So we have to deal with both of those issues. But I would get back to consequences. We have to have a set of expectations, and then there have to be consequences for actions that don't conform with those expectations throughout the school system. And finally, as the last part of that puzzle, the board and the administration have to back the staff out in the fields, out in the various schools throughout the school system as they take action related to those consequences. So, and then you look at other issues. The school district is a large organization. And I would say that one of the things I bring to the table there, I've been a CEO of an organization. I'm a 40-year CEO. So I've had the opportunity to work with really good staffs. Probably one of the things that I'm most proud of at the Park District over my tenure there is the people that I had the opportunity to work with in creating climate and culture. Climate and culture doesn't happen overnight. Creating a place where people feel comfortable, they feel supported, they feel like they're going to make a difference, they get to apply what their educational background is to the real world setting. Everybody's going to make some mistakes. We've got to support that. You show me somebody who doesn't make some mistakes, and I'll show you somebody who's probably not doing much. So consequently, my expectation would be that we're going to support people as they actively try to turn this ship around. And it is a big ship. We have to realize that the school district is 1,800 employees, the third or fourth largest employer in Macon County. It's a $180 million total budget. And when you begin to think in those numbers, that size and scope of organization dwarfs any other organization in our community. And as such, you get back to governance, we as a board need to focus on our corporate governance and how we govern an organization of that magnitude. It comes down to us as a board sometimes. There's kind of a saying about that one of my kids relayed to me one day, and they said, "Dad, you're worried about the Band-Aids and you forgot about what's going on under the Band-Aid. Or you're worried about the color of the Band-Aids." And I said, that's a thought we really need to think about and focus on. Because a policy-making board does just that. They set policy. The superintendent and her staff operationalizes policy. That's always a fine line, and that line just, it doesn't really change. You have to be cognizant of it as a board member, and every day think about how am I going to make this organization better, and how am I going to work with my colleagues on the board to make this better. Because when you think about that, really and truly, if we're going to expect students to be good students, good citizens, all those traits that you want, don't you think they should look to their leadership to do the same thing?
Absolutely.
So, and last piece to me would be finance too, because I think right now, sometimes we get a little bit of a false sense of security. There's, when you look at the school budget right now, it appears that there's a lot of money, and there is, because of the injection of the COVID money and all those kinds of funds that came in. But there's going to be a sunset window on those. And when that window closes, then we're going to need to be able to look at where the school system's going to be financially then with the local tax base in mind. You know, right now, the school system is 50% of the local tax dollar. Every dollar, 50 cents goes to the school district. So I think we have to be sound stewards of our financial future, and I think it's going to be important that we look at our 3-year, 5-year, 10-year projections and how that relates to our assessed valuation, how it relates to population, how it relates to community growth or decline, because all those numbers ebb and flow, and they all affect what that budget's going to look like down the road. So for us as a board, we can't think in a 1-year budget plan. We can't think because you run on a 2-year, 4-year cycle. You can't think like that. We have to think like long-term planning and set scenarios of what this is going to look like, because we have an obligation to the taxpayer too. Well, I think right now one of the priorities, of course, is academic achievement. Yeah. It has to be. I would think that any current school board member, future school board member would have to have that top of mind all the time. But I want to give you a number. We moved here, Candy and I moved here with 3 boys and 1 was born here. So 1988, March of 1988, I started my career here. The first school superintendent that I worked with to create partnerships and so forth was Robert Oakes. He was a 20-year school superintendent. Fast forward to 2023. We now have seen, Dr. Clark is either my 16th or 17th school superintendent. If we want to affect positively organizational climate and culture and build an organization that's a high-performing organization, what we have to do is stabilize leadership at the top. We cannot continue to change superintendents every year or two as we move down the road. That's not a success equation. So I think I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that number, because it's surprising to a lot of people that there have been so many school superintendents. I think the longest serving school superintendent was probably Gloria Davis, and she was 6 or 8 years of that 34. So if you extrapolate that backward, it's a pretty short tenure for people. So I think we really have to get focused on, the buzzwords of the day are climate and culture and that kind of thing, but we really do have to get focused on that, because that creates teams of people who really energize an organization. I think there are some really good programs in District 61. Look at the Andreas Ag Academy. Look at the new building that's being constructed down south by the Howard Buffett Foundation. Look at 500 or 600 young people in the Andreas Ag Academy that are going to go into a myriad of different careers as they enter the workforce, from college to trades to just a wide variety of things. Look at the Jerry Dawson Leadership Academy run by Dr. Juanita Morris. We're giving people those skills in the community, giving them opportunities for internships that are going to help them grow their futures. We have the dual credit programs with Richland, where young people are really going to minimize their time in the university by completing a couple of years of that work or more, if they really are industrious, out at Richland. So you begin to think about those kinds of programs. We had a robotic team from Johns Hill the other night into a board meeting, and they won a competition, a regional type statewide competition. So those kinds of things sometimes tend to get overshadowed by conversation, just ongoing conversation about negative. So I'm also a glasses half full guy. We really need to accentuate those positives, accentuate those kids, bring those kids forward, identify those kids as up and coming stars. And we have kids out of District 61 that are going to university level doing great things. We have kids from District 61 that are going to the trades, the IBEW, the laborers, the carpenters, all the different trades that are great careers. And we're now beginning to see young people embrace the trades again. And the trades they really are in need of young people, because really the people in the trades, many of them a little younger than me, but I tell you what, they look more like me than they do you. So we really need to continue to push all those opportunities and give them some of those hands-on life's experiences so that they can make those decisions. Because it seems like in today's world, we're expecting young people to make lifetime decisions really early in life. So, and the extracurricular activities, we can talk about those for just a minute.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was fortunate enough, really fortunate, back in the early to mid 2000s. The MacArthur Jazz Band was absolutely recognized as the #1 high school jazz band, not in Illinois, but the United States, by Downbeat magazine. That was a program that expected excellence. And with expectations, the young people in that program performed up to that expectation. I'd like to see us musically, athletically, in arts in general. The arts gives kids so many opportunities to gain confidence. When you're performing, you're gaining that ability to be in front of an audience and project yourself in front of an audience. It's the same thing on the athletic field. Sometimes, music, there's direct correlations between music and math and success in math and science. So I think we need to look at those kinds of things and try to help our staff recreate some of that magic that was there in the system. And I'm not one who lives in yesterday, but I tell you what, we learn lessons from the past that we can apply to the future. And those were some really good lessons out of District 61 that put Decatur, Illinois on the map as a place to do music, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I think one of the things probably that, they ask, why are you doing it? Well, I don't have an axe to grind. I'm retired. I had a 45-year career, a good 45-year career, was engaged with local business, not-for-profits, the school system, developing these partnerships, worked with legislators over that period of time to help bring projects to Decatur. I think I have a proven track record of when you implement a project, it's going to be finished on time, on budget. And so I think I bring that level of, a level of security that there's going to be stability. And those experiences, I think, would lend well to, we're going to be building a new school. You can look around the community and see projects that I've been involved in over all those years. And I've kind of always said that my most important job as a director of the Park District was, I've had this conversation over the years with so many board members, that you can guess and guess and guess, but at the end of the day, I need to put the right person in the right place at the right time. And then you know what I need to do? Get out of the way and let them use that expertise to do a great job for Decatur.